Hello everyone, this is Ryan from the ProfitTrailer team, also known as RF Radio on the ProfitTrailer support server on Discord as well as elsewhere on the internet. In this video I'm going to be going over one of the last strategies to cover in the Strategies Talk series, and that would be on balance volume. I know this one has been pretty often requested, and I've been doing my research on it to make sure I'm giving you guys accurate information, because this is an indicator that I'm not very well familiar with because I don't use it in trading a lot. So I just wanted to make sure I had all the correct information for you before producing this video. So for now, we're going to go ahead and get started over on the chart school on stockcharts.com to give you a quick overview of what on balance volume really is. And then we'll go into how the bot uses it and how it is able to be used across multiple assets at the same time. So on balance volume is actually an indicator that measures volume flow. So in this explanation, it's talking about buying and selling pressure, and it uses a cumulative indicator that adds volume on up days and subtracts volume on down days. Okay, so this was developed actually quite a while ago. As you can see here, it was developed by Joe Granville, introduced in 1963. So it's one of the first indicators to measure positive and negative volume flow. Chartists can look for divergences between OBV and price to predict movements, or use OBV to confirm price trends. And what they mean is the theory behind it is that volume movement leads price movement. Okay, that was what Joe Granville's theory posited. So it could be used as a predictor potentially if volume was seen to consistently increase prior to say a price increase, or to decrease prior to a price decrease. That was the general rule, or general gist of it. Those are the kind of things that they're talking about here, that the price movement would lead a change in a volume movement would lead a change in price movement. That's really what he was getting at with his theory. So the calculation of on balance volume is simply a running total of positive and negative volume. So a period's volume is positive when the close is above the prior close, and then a period's volume would be negative when the close is below the prior close. So you're just basically looking at the closing price of the asset on a given period. So if you're using half-hour candles, then at the end of each half-hour period, that closing price is what this is concerned with. So if your closing price on your latest candle is above the prior candle, that's a positive, and it's added to the total. Now, if that current candle is closing below the prior candle's close, then that volume for that candle would be subtracted from the total volume of all the prior candles. So you see how it works, kind of, sort of, and it just keeps a running total. Here's a chart that kind of illustrates that here. So you've got a close of 53.26. That's the beginning of the volume tracking. So that has no up or down because it's the very first one. And then the next one we have here, 53.30. It's above the prior candle's close, or the prior period's close, which these would be daily candles if they were using candles for this. And that, as a result, it's a positive, +1 up. So you got an up candle here, so +1. The volume on that candle will be 8,200, so the positive 8,200 added to your total, which originally was 0. So there you go. That's the first on balance volume measurement of 8,200. So the next candle, 53.32, it's another up candle. You just simply add the volume to the prior one, and so on and so forth. It's just adding and subtracting, and it's just constantly running a total of adding and subtracting the volumes based on up or down close compared to the prior one. You probably wonder where this is all going, okay? Because this is not how the bot uses on balance volume. I'll get into that a little more in detail later, but I'm just going to tell you right now. It does use this. It does use these volume calculations, but in a different fashion. It doesn't keep the running total like this, because you can't possibly have this done for every single candle or every single coin for all the different volumes, and be able to calculate it for a single measurement. So I'll get into how exactly it does that in a little bit here. So there are further examples here if you scroll down and just read through. I'm not going to go into the rest of this article in detail since I'm just giving you a quick overview of how on-balance volume works here. But if you wanted more examples of how to use it, there's a whole bunch of stuff in here on different interpretations of it. And this is where it's talking about where Granville theorized that volume precedes price. So if you want to read more about his theory, it's right here. And then the divergences, this is where we're starting to get into how to use the divergences between the volume and price to kind of predict movements and things like that. That's what this is talking about here. And there's a whole lot of information on this if you really want to get into the weeds on how to use on-balance volume. Then looks like there's suggested scans and stuff. This is for using Stock Chart's own built-in software, I think, for the charts. So, but if you wanted to really get into how OBV is used and stuff, there's a great article here on stockcharts.com for it. Investopedia I would normally recommend for this kind of thing, except they're a lot more limited in their information of how to use this, so it's more of a definition, just like this top half of this article on Investopedia. I've already checked there. So, but if you have other sources for this kind of information, by all means go to them, research this, make sure you understand what exactly this is, or what exactly this does before you start using it. Okay, so let's go on back to the bot real quick here, and I'll show you how in the wiki here, how it is actually set up. So if we go down to the wiki at the bottom here, click that. It takes us here to the ProfitTrailer wiki. We scroll down to the left side here, down in the trading group, we look at buy and sell strategies, and that takes us to this very familiar looking page right here. You see near the bottom of the matrix here, you have this OBV. That is your on-balance volume. Now, according to the chart here, you can use it for all forms of buying and selling if you so wish. So we click this link. It takes us down to the article. And so we have the buy and sell strategy. Wow, there's a lot of stuff here. How many times can it be true? So it says that it can be true if so. There's a bunch of different scenarios. If your buy value is greater than or equal to 0, then it has to be true. If the buy value is less than the on-balance volume, which has to be less than the buy value limit. Okay, so if the OBV is between the buy value and buy value limit, and you're using a positive buy value, then this is satisfied. So that's what this is telling you here. If you're using a negative buy value, then your OBV is going to be less than your buy value, but greater than the buy value limit in order for the strategy to be considered true and ready to buy. Now, if you're selling, if it's a positive sell value, the OBV is going to be less than or equal to sell value. Okay, so that's a little weird, huh? And it's going to be greater than or equal to buy value limit. If sell value is greater or less than 0, then your sell value is going to be equal to or less than your on-balance volume. So your OBV is going to be greater than your sell value if you're using a negative sell value. So this is kind of counterintuitive compared to the other indicators, the way this is set up. And again, this factors in buy value limit for sell. Now you have your on-balance volume description here, and it's basically what we just went into on stock charts, so I'm not going to cover it again here. So you can use this. This is almost actually copied from stock charts, this description, so this is pretty well what we've been talking about already. Now it says here, in ProfitTrailer, only the past 500 candles of volume are available. Okay, that's mainly because on most of the charting programs out there, all you will have is 500 candles of volume available. Then you have the numbers here that you can select for your OBV buy and sell strategy. Positive and negative decimal values is fully acceptable. There's basically no limit. It's just make sure that when you select a buy or sell value, that is within the chart range of the indicator. Otherwise, you may be never buying or selling. So just go ahead and make sure that whatever you put in there is actually going to work for whatever coins you want to trade. The parameters, these are in your indicators configuration. You have your OBV candle period, OBV length, and OBV signal. So your candle period is just like all the others, is how long are the candles individually. That's up to your exchange. Each exchange is going to be slightly different, so be sure to consult the exchange settings area of the wiki in order to determine which candle periods are valid for your exchange that you're trading on. The OBV length must be less than 500. So actually it's 499 maximum. You can't have it set at 500. It won't work. So make sure that it's 499 if you want to use the maximum length. The reason being is that 500th candle is your current candle. So it can only look back 499 more candles. Okay. And now your OBV signal. Now this is a little bit... this gets a little bit confusing to some people. I mean, when I first looked at this, I was a little confused myself. So what your signal is actually a signal candle. You're telling the bot to look back X number of candles and determine the volume, the unbalanced volume at that candle, and compare it to your current candle. That's actually how this works. So we'll get a little bit more into that right here about the formula. So how ProfitTrailer uses on-balance volume. So it's going to look at, it's going to calculate the OBV based off of your length, how many candles you're wanting to use for that on-balance volume calculation. Then it's going to take that OBV, and whatever you set for your signal, it's like how many candles back do you want to look back to compare from that candle to your current candle, the difference in the on-balance volume. And that's actually what you're going to be setting for your buy or sell value, is the percent difference between your current candle and your signal candle. So you can pick whatever signal and like however many candles back to look. Say if you're using a OBV length of 14, right? So 14 candles is what your length is, and you want to look back 3 candles to compare to your current candle what the difference in the on-balance volume was. Then your signal would be 3. Okay, so you're looking back 3 candles. That's all it means. So you're just going to go back 3 candles, and it's going to calculate the percent difference between that candle's on-balance volume and your current one. And if it meets your criteria for buying or selling, as defined by the sell value logic or buy value logic, then it will say true, and it'll try and buy or sell whichever one you're doing at the time. So that's how these parameters function. Here's a couple of examples. So the default A buy value, negative 0.001. Then your buy zone begins when the calculated value is less than negative 0.001. Okay, so that would mean if you look at, oops, wrong direction. If we look up here at this, the buy value less than 0. So the buy value is greater than the OBV. So it's got to be more positive then, is what it's saying here. So if the default A buy value is negative 0.001, then it's looking above that, closer to 0. It's a little different. And then the default A buy value limit must be less than negative 0.001 if used. So that's a little bit interesting on how this works. So yeah, the OBV has got to be less than, oh, hang on, I've got this backwards. I am thinking backwards on this. So default A buy value, negative 0.001, means the buy zone begins with the calculated value is less than negative 0.001. So that means it's got to be more negative. Okay, so the default A buy value limit must be less than that as well. That's going to be more negative. So if you're using default A buy value in the positive range, like this 0.005, then your buy zone begins when the calculated value is greater than 0.005, and then your buy value limit must be higher than that. So that is, in a nutshell, how OBV is used by ProfitTrailer. So if we go ahead and take a look over here at the bot again, and we're going to just go into the pairs configuration just to see how this works real quick. And it looks like I'm having a little bit of trouble with my test bot here. Let me just refresh the page real quick. and it might just be that I am having all sorts of technical difficulties with this at the moment. It picked a good time to do this. There we go. Alright, so my test bot's back. If we go into the config, pairs, and we go down to the buy settings here, and I'm just going to zoom in real quick so we can see a little bit better what we're doing. Here we go. I have my default A buy strategy defined as OBV, default A buy value of 0.5, and then I didn't set a buy value limit, but you could if you want. I just have mine commented out, but I could just do that. And this would be a valid setup right here. Actually, I might just do that right there. Save it. So it's going to be between a 0.5 and 1% positive change in the on-balance volume from my signal candle to my current one. And then it'll be satisfied. Okay, that's all that this setup means right here. I have coupled it with a second strategy because OBV might not work very well on its own necessarily. It would work a lot better, in my opinion, coupled with another strategy. So take that for what you will. You can use it on your own if you want, but I'm a firm believer that it would work a little bit better when actually paired with another strategy, at least one other strategy at a minimum. So once this is satisfied here, and in this case my MACD must also be satisfied, then the trailing buy will take over. And for selling, I have here just as an example, and by the way, this entire setup here is strictly an example, so please do not use this out of the box because this has not been fully tested, and please understand this indicator before attempting to use it in any fashion. You've been warned. The default sell settings I have set up here, just an example, OBV in a negative value for negative 0.1, so when it gets to a negative 0.1 on balance volume or below, it will try and sell, I believe. Unless I had that backwards. We look back here on the sell. Oop, I went too far. OBV, there we are. If sell value is less than 0, then the sell value is equal to or less than OBV. Okay, so in this case, since I have a negative on balance volume, sell value specified here, then it's got to be greater than 0.1 or greater than negative 0.1, and then it will sell. So that's all that's saying there. And then I've also coupled it with gain here because this is mandatory for use of any strategy. Any sell strategy must incorporate gain. I've also thrown in RSI probably just because I had that left over from my prior test bot setup for demonstration here. So you can set this up however you'd like, but yeah, again, don't take this setup I have here as being tested because it has not been tested. If we go over to the DCA config, it's a lot like pairs. It's just you've got a couple of extra things added in, like on your buying, just like all the other strategies, you have to satisfy buy trigger before this strategy will begin to work for buying. And then for selling, it's just straight sell from the DCA log. So the selling works just like it does in pairs. You just are able to define additional parameters or change your strategy for selling altogether if you like between pairs and DCA. But there is that ability here. Also, if we were to take a look at the indicators here, we can see what the OBV is controlled by. That's what this here is set up. I have the candle period set for 1 hour. OBV length of, well, I've set it to 500. It really shouldn't work there. So it's 499 is actually the longest length you can have on this. And then a signal of 3. So I'm looking back only 3 candles. You can set this as far back as you want. As long as it's under 499. It's got to be between your OBV length candle and your current one. So it cannot be greater. Your signal cannot be greater than your OBV length. So now we understand how and where to set things up here in the configuration. Let's go ahead and take a look at TradingView. Right now I have this set up for daily candle. Let's change it to an hourly just to match my test bot real quick. And I have here on the charts the stellar price in Bitcoin on Binance. Just to give you a demonstration here, this curve that you see down here, this orange line, this is the OBV indicator that is included with TradingView. I put it up here to give you a look at the difference between how ProfitTrailer calculates OBV and uses it versus how it is displayed natively on TradingView. So as you see here, this number that's right next to the setting here for the OBV, it's a very massive number. I mean, we're looking at what, 4,161,137,733 at that, where my cursor is right now, here, and that would have been on the 8th of July at 2 in the morning. That is the on-balance volume for that candle. So that is the total. What it's measuring there is the on-balance volume in the number of stellar coins on this market. Okay, so that is a huge number. If we look at the ProfitTrailer indicator, or actually this is the bot indicators OBV, is developed by Helmy. Thank you very much, Helmy, for developing this. It's a much different curve, because what we're seeing here is, if I look back, I'll get to check my setup here. Let's try and match this as close as possible to my trading bot, except for my buying value there. What we're seeing here is the percent difference per candle from 3 candles prior. Okay, that's what this is. Oh, and a note on this indicator, it does not go back more than 100 days. So you can't get your full length as you would normally see it, or if you want to use more than 100 candle length on your bot, this indicator won't go back more than 100 days. So it's not going to give you that full picture, but it'll give you a close approximation. And that's all this thing can do, really, with the way that the volumes are set up to measure on TradingView. This indicator can only give you a ballpark figure. Now, the reason why this can only give you an approximation is also because it is using the historic on-balance volume data that ProfitTrailer uses, like that curve that's down below it here, or this line, this very jagged line it looks like. This is actually what the bot indicators OBV will use for tracking on-balance volume and measuring that percent difference. So this curve that on the OBV here, what you're seeing is just percent difference between your signal candle and your current candle, and it changes as it goes through the different candles. It will change over time because as you see, the volume changes here constantly, and you see the up and down candles all over the place here. So this is going to be changing all the time. So that's what we're observing here, is just percent difference between signal candle and current candle, and that's why it looks so weird compared to the typical on-balance volume line that we see. Now, why is this using percent? Well, think about it. If you were to use the straight on-balance volume measurement, and you said that you would like to buy when on-balance volume measure, or the on-balance volume reaches 4 billion and change, okay, like you have here on this particular chain, well, you'd be buying and selling an awful lot when it crossed that threshold up or down. And if it's not even getting to that point, you wouldn't be buying or selling at all. So all the different coins have all different volumes, all different on-balance volumes at any given time. The only way to unify that measurement across all of the different coins that you could be trading on here is to use a percentage difference. So that's where this indicator was born, basically, in order to be able to use it with ProfitTrailer. It just had to take a percent difference of a candle, or candle measurements. Now, you can set this from one candle to the next if you wanted to do so. If you click the little gear icon down here, if this will actually open, there we go, and just change your OBV signal to 1, it's only going to look back at the prior candle. So that's if you wanted to just match it to the difference between your current candle and the prior one, that's how you do it. And then you'll notice it'll change quite drastically from one to the next. You'll see this line will change, maybe even just a single digit change. If you go to 2, say it changes the curve. And that's really just illustrating it here on the chart, giving you a visual confirmation of your strategy. 1 can be used effectively like this as well. So it's entirely up to you how you want to use it. Again, I would consider coupling this with another strategy just to be safe, and being able to get good confirmation on your buys and sells. So that's about all I have for the on-balance volume. I hope you found this informative as well as entertaining, and you can now have a better understanding of how to use this. As always, stay safe, happy trading, and I will see you on the next video, which will be the last of the strategies talk. We're going to cover the Anderson and disabled functions. If you need any help with your ProfitTrailer client, please consult the wiki at wiki.profittrailer.com, and if you still have more questions, don't hesitate to join us over on the Discord support server following the link on your screen.